Welcome to Nephew and Uncle Basketball Banter. Joined with my co-host and uncle, David Scholler. And for those of you that are just tuning in for us for the first time, we are on Spotify, we're on Apple, and we're on YouTube. That's where you could find us. Just type in Nephew and Uncle Basketball Banter. And we have a new intro for the show that's pretty spicy and snazzy. So for those of you that want to see the visual of that, you could just tune into our YouTube page and see what it's all about and how visually, aesthetically pleasing it is. So, Uncle Dave, I'm going to start with a few NBA topics here. One of your favorite guys that you always mention when you talk about those 80s Laker teams with Magic Johnson, Michael Cooper, just had his jersey retired. So I thought
Yes.
I'd get your opinion on Michael Cooper and the
Well,
admiration and love you have for him and what he was as a player to you.
he was like a late round draft pick out of New Mexico State. Michael Cooper, Larry Bird called him the best defender he ever faced. That's strong praise since he had Rodman guard him.
Sure.
Michael Cooper also started the Cooper loop, which was Magic to Cooper instead of back screen and throw it up, and Michael Cooper could really jump. Michael Cooper might also be getting his jersey retired because he's also won a couple of WNBA titles as well. I'm not sure if it was for the LA franchise, but I think it might be a dual accomplishment as a coach and a player. But as a player, he was a great role player, good spot up 3-point shooter, even though in the one final he had a rough time, but then eventually broke out. He could cover anybody. He was probably weighed about a buck 30, but man, was he tough and he had great hands, could play point guard for you, could guard the other team's point guard. I mean, to me, a glue guy deserves to have a jersey retired because we retire so many other people who never won craps jersey. This is a guy who won 5 titles, was there for every one of them, and just a great player. People realize, New Mexico State couldn't find him with a map. The Lakers draft him again. Jerry West getting it done, and a great pickup, and was a great player, and has had success as a coach. I loved Michael Cooper as a '80s Laker fan. My favorite teams of all time. I would put him in the Laker Hall of Fame. Obviously, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but he's a Laker Hall of Famer.
Before I break down Uncle Dave, like his accolades and everything and his numbers, so some things just obviously just stand out. Why do you think it took so long for them to retire his jersey that they're finally doing it now after all these years? Do you have
I
any
think
theory?
that sometimes those guys get forgotten, and right now the Lakers, I think, are
Right.
fishing for a little positive energy, and they want the Laker fans to flash back to better times.
Right.
And those '80s teams are the best Laker teams they ever had. So
Right.
even better, Kobe's teams were good, but they weren't the '80s Lakers team. Shaq and Kobe were good too, but not the '80s Lakers. So I think that they're trying to get some positivity, which sometimes the player benefits from that. So I feel like that's part of the reason they waited a long time, but also that's what's missing today on a lot of these teams. And that Laker team certainly has a couple of guys I think could play that part. But Michael Cooper did all the dirty work. He covered the other team's best player all the time, and he just played so hard. He was such a great athlete, and he always wore the high socks. So if
Those
you go watch
knee-high
Michael
socks,
Cooper,
yeah.
yeah, if you go watch the Michael Cooper highlights, every time's knee-high socks, and just fond memories of Michael Cooper. I watched every big game with him in it, and starting with Game 6, and basically going forward all the way through '88, and we won back to back. So Michael Cooper always a favorite of mine. And you know what? Those great teams always had 3 guard rotations. The Piston teams had Vinnie Johnson with Isaiah and Joe Dumars. The Celtics for a while. Gerald Henderson was a good player, but they had Danny Ainge and Dennis Johnson. So you always had to have those good 3 guard rotations that could do multiple things for you. And those championship teams had that. The Sixers had, Andrew Toney and Mo Cheeks and, guys like Earl Curran off the bench and things of that nature. Sometimes he wasn't a guard, but they had those guard rotations and made their teams tough. Bobby Jones and those guys made teams tough, great defenders, and that doesn't get looked at enough today. But I'd love Michael Cooper.
So Uncle Dave, his playing height and official weight, 6'7", 170.
Wow, that's generous. If he's 170, wow, I don't know where he's putting it, but God
It's so
bless
funny.
Cooper,
You
man.
always have the saying, could hula hoop through a Cheerio, you know?
Yes, yes. And Michael Cooper is definitely one of my favorite players of all time, though, because he was and you know what? I hate to say it. I know it's cheesy, but that team always looked like they were having fun out there.
No, it's true. You
So, and
watch you watch the games and the highlights. Yeah,
yep,
it's always high-fiving and smiling. Obviously, Magic is the catalyst
yeah,
behind that, but the other guys picked up on it though. They didn't have
yeah.
to
And
do
most of the time they were. Like I always tell my players at school, I go, guys, listen.
It's a
You know, you
game.
could play the Lakers even
Yeah,
for 42 of the 48 minutes, but they'd get two 10-0 runs in a 3-minute span in each half, and you lose by 20.
right,
And you say, yeah, we beat them the other 42 minutes. Well, yeah, but you lost by 20.
right.
And that's what the Lakers are duty. And Michael Cooper was always a part of that. And him and Byron Scott, and early on, him and Norm Nixon, going with Magic, and just a lot of fun, man. A lot of fun, those teams. And like I said, since Magic's retired, I'm not as big an NBA fan, but I still watch it a little bit. But,
Right.
playoffs, I watch it a lot. I still follow the Duke guys. But I love the level of play that Michael Cooper brought to the team.
So, Uncle Dave, we're going to go through the other retired Lakers. He joins Kobe Bryant, who has both his 8 and 24 retired, Wilt Chamberlain, Elgin Baylor, Gail Goodrich, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy, and Jerry West. So he
Oh,
joins the
gotcha.
gentlemen.
All deserving.
But you know what, though? Like you said, he was a part of all 5 championship teams, which, you know what? We talk about it too, how there are certain guys throughout the history of the game where you could just put them on any team in any era and they could immediately contribute. You don't have to ever run a play for a guy like Michael
Yep.
Cooper. Guys that
Iggy.
also like this are like Dennis Rodman, Andre Iguodala. You could plug and play them in literally any team at any.
Love Iggy and those guys. Yep. Yep.
Yep. And so just
Tayshaun Prince.
so he was Michael Cooper Defensive Player of the Year in 1987. And oh, by the way, he did it as a six man, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, that never has been done probably since or before. He
Yep.
was all NBA defensive first team in 82, 84, 85, 87, and 1988.
Yep. He
NBA
was a
all
stud.
yep, all second team 81, 83, 86. And like you said, he was WNBA Coach of the Year in 2000 and won a championship 2001 and 2002 when he won a D-League championship too. Coached a team in
Yeah. He's a basketball lifer and
Yep.
good personal friend of Magic's. I know that story pretty well.
So
I mean, I know he's not as good as those players. Certainly Goodrich would be the one he's closest to, but he's not Gail Goodrich. Gail Goodrich is better, but he definitely belongs up there, and really happy to see him up there.
and what also stands out when you're looking at his numbers, Uncle Dave, he averaged for his career 4 assists a game, and he played his whole career with Magic Johnson. So Magic
Yeah.
wasn't the only one dishing out assists for the Lakers there. So that's
No,
pretty
and what they would do a lot of times, they'd post up Magic if they got the right mismatch, and Coop would bring the ball up.
right.
Coop usually played the point, and then when Magic and him were out there together, they'd both play the point. They would just push it, and
Yep.
he played a lot with Byron Scott and a lot with Norm Nixon early on before they shipped Norm off to the Clippers. But really a wonderful player, high IQ player, a guy that the casual fan who's younger might not know, but Michael Cooper's worth it. Go on YouTube, check it out, and enjoy. Press play.
And through 1982 to 1987, he plays all 82 games for 5 consecutive seasons. So this is the
Sure.
guy who he never missed games. And you know what? When you think of 6 men of the year, he might be the poster guy for that.
Sure.
873 games
Excuse
he
me.
played for the Lakers, and he only started 94 games.
That's correct.
It's just incredible. I mean, truly was a 6 man. Like
Oh, he was unbelievable.
yeah.
And we loved
So
him as a player, and the fans loved him too because every time he came in a game, something good was going to happen. So he was a guy that you just had to love. I mean, Michael Cooper is, like I said, he's not a guy that would be your favorite player, but he's a guy that'll always make you smile. When you think of the Lakers, you'll think of Michael Cooper, and you'll always have a
absolutely.
smirk on your face.
Yep. So he averages around 10 points for his career, basically. You look at his points per game. And he shoots 47% from the field. So he's a guy, he wasn't scoring a lot, but when he was shooting the ball, he was making his shots.
Yeah.
And from the free throw line, he shot 83%. I was not expecting that. 83% free throw shooter. That's an elite free throw shooter right there.
And don't forget, in his career, the 3-point line is 21 inches further back than it is now.
Incredible.
So he became a decent 3-point shooter, but that's
Yeah,
the
he
thing.
did. For his career, he shot 34%. Yep.
Yeah, they moved the 3-point line in at 94, 95, 21 inches, and they wanted to get scoring up, and they did that.
Yep. And as a defensive player, he averages for a steal a game for his career too. So Michael Cooper,
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought it would be good
Mike.
for us to highlight a Laker legend, and he got his
Oh,
jersey
yeah.
retired. So uh,
Coop.
so all those Laker fans out there who watched him play like you did back in the day, I'm sure are
Sure.
signing off on this, no question about it. Long overdue. So
Oh, yeah. Great
Michael
player.
Cooper, 21, number retired for the LA Lakers for his
Yeah,
contribution
like
to 5
I
championships.
said to a fan on one of these NBA sites who questioned it, I go, just tell me you never watched the 80s Lakers then.
Right.
He's like, I didn't. I go, then what the hell are you commenting for? I'm an 80s Laker fan. Mike, you don't win anything without Michael Cooper. He guarded
No,
Bird every
that's the
time.
thing. Magic Johnson even talked about it. You have to obviously guys like Kareem and Magic are the Cadillacs, all right? You need those type of
Sure.
guys to win championships, but you don't win championships without guys like also Scottie Pippen or Dennis Rodman or Michael Cooper's. You need those guys as well to
Yeah, but
contribute. You don't just do it
but
by yourself.
but don't forget, you used to make a great point. But at the same time, how many of these people know what a championship is? Most of them never won shit in their life.
Right.
Or maybe they want a fucking, CYO trophy somewhere. But the bottom line is how many people really coached or played on a high level team that won. And when you do that, you know what pieces are there because you've been around it. You recognize all the contributions. And Michael Cooper is certainly one of those guys. I just said to the guy, I said, tell me you never watched the 80s Lakers. He said, never did. I go, well, there you go.
And yeah,
Conversation's over.
then shut the hell up, right? You
Yeah,
know
like
what?
conversation's over.
It's either you watched live and you saw the games, or you have to be a basketball savant historian in order to have
Hmm.
appreciation for these kind of things. So unless you
Yeah.
actually go back and watch the games, or you watched live during that time, or you dig through the numbers and everything and see really, dissect things, then you don't have any clue. So a lot of people
Yeah.
on these pages, that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, but they just take the dumbest observations. Like one guy was telling me today, James Harden was better than Michael Jordan. I just fell off the fucking couch.
Right, right. I think some people just talk
Yeah, they just
nonsense.
post stupid
Yeah,
crap, and I just,
right.
I always post my a condom could have prevented this post.
Right.
You know, but unfortunately, that didn't happen.
So before we get into the college hoops, Uncle Dave, we're going to talk about a couple more NBA topics here. So Luka Doncic, he has missed enough games to where he's not eligible for any postseason awards now. So I want to talk about this rule that the NBA has, in which you don't play 65 games, you're not eligible for any awards.
I like it.
Now, I love it. I think if you miss a fifth, 20% of your work, you shouldn't be eligible for any type of award. So
Yeah, how you an
let's
MVP at that point?
let's talk about this. Is this obviously a rule that you agree with or not?
Definitely. How could you be an MVP if you miss 20% of your team's games?
Right.
So to me, it's like LeBron a couple of times missed 15 games a year and be like bitching about not getting an MVP. I'm like, well, you missed, more than 16% of your team's games. How can you be an MVP?
Yeah.
If you go back and you look, I mean, there's some dark ink on 82 games played a year by Karl Malone, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. John Stockton did it for years. I mean, if you want to be an MVP or be one of those people, I'm sorry, you need to be out there every night. Availability is a skill.
Right. Yeah, no,
And
I
without available,
honestly, if anything, I would have it be a little higher than what it is right now, but I think it's actually a good rule that the NBA has implemented because I think it's also going to prevent some guys from what's the load management type of thing. So it
oh
prevents that a
gosh,
little bit
yeah,
as well because now if a guy twists an ankle or anything, you're out a couple weeks. Now you're really in jeopardy of
Greg Popovich, load
any
management.
awards. Yeah, I know. Well, that kind of got the ball rolling with that, didn't it?
Thanks,
So
Pop. You're
yeah,
the best. It
I
really
know
paid
that.
off for Kawhi because Kawhi was so committed to you.
Yeah. Oh my God. Talk about a guy.
Sarcasm.
Oh my God. Yeah. So. Yeah, I just wanted to touch base on that. I think that's a great rule. I think that the NBA has, and I think it's something that I think was should have been implemented a while ago, but it took a
Sure,
minute, I think, for the league to kind of notice that this is a problem with too many of the star players missing games. So
sure.
I'm on board with that. And then the other topic, Uncle Dave, before we get to our college hoop, Zion Williamson.
Oh,
He
Jesus.
he he was suspended a game for being late to the team plane. He so far in his Pelicans career has missed 52% of the eligible games that he's been able to play in since
That's
he's
why I
been
told you I'll
by the
take Cooper
Pelicans.
Flag.
Well, the funny thing is with that also, by the way, Uncle Dave, the Pelicans will have the best chance of drafting Cooper Flag. That's the irony of the whole
Yeah, I'm
thing.
taking Cooper Flag or Bailey.
With yeah, so he's only appeared 8 of the 40 games for the Pelicans this season as well, being late for the team plane.
No
He
excuse.
also Stephen A. Smith on his show he says that Zion he's got a problem with food. That's not a that's a pretty obvious statement right there. And Zion says, I take full responsibility for this suspension. I've worked extremely hard in rehab to get healthier to deliver for this team. There is no excuse for being late to team activities. I have apologized to Mrs. Benson and my teammates and coaches, and I also owe an apology to the fans.
Sure.
And I gotta say, Uncle Dave, I've had enough of this guy, quite frankly. You look at also a guy like Anthony Davis. I'm sure some people will try to compare Anthony Davis's time with the Pelicans to kind of what Zion Williamson is going through. But the thing you have to remember with Anthony Davis is he played for the Pelicans. He played 7 seasons for the Pelicans, and he delivered. He averaged,
He did. Anthony Davis plays when he can.
when he was with the Pelicans, he averaged, 28 a game, 24, 24, 21, and he played at least 60 games in 7 of the seasons. So he only played only one season where he played less than 60, 56 in his last season there. So Anthony Davis, you could say what you want about his time in New Orleans and how he kind of forced himself out of there, but at least he played 7 seasons and he did give it his all when he did play there.
And the New
Zion
Orleans roster,
Williamson,
yeah,
yeah, Zion
New Orleans
Williamson,
roster's been talented, but they just don't put it together.
yeah. And the unfortunate thing with Zion is when he does play, he does produce, but the thing is the guy does not play. You can't he's missed more than half of his games. And I'm the if I'm a franchise that's really I mean you might want to get take a gamble on him if you get him for cheap, but I just don't think this guy is committed to playing, I think, basketball at all. Like truthfully, like top to bottom, I
No,
don't think he's a committed player.
no.
I don't think
But
he's
you
a
know
winning
someone will
player.
take a chance. You know some team will take a chance and they'll empty the boat. They'll empty the boat. They'll back up the bank truck. You know.
Yeah. No, I think this guy, you know what? I mean, he's obviously he's a highlight reel waiting to happen, but as
Yeah.
far as being reliable, I think he's proven that he's not. And like I said, comparing it to Anthony Davis, I'm sure he wasn't happy his last few seasons. That's why he wanted to get out of New Orleans and
Sure, you
go
want to
somewhere
win.
else. But but also, he's 7 years into his career. Zion Williamson, you're only 24. You could right the wrong here in New Orleans. You could make them a great, a potentially really good team. He just doesn't want to or doesn't care. He doesn't have a motor, this guy.
Well, the other thing too is Anthony Davis was a great defensive player and still is, so he gives himself a little boost that Zion can't really say.
Right.
So Anthony Davis also won in college too. Anthony Davis, like I said, is a great shot blocker, does a lot of things. I've not always been the biggest fan, but at the
I
same
know you.
time,
Yep. Yep.
I know at the same time he's done some things that Zion's never done. And I'm a
Right.
Duke fan telling you this, and I like Zion, but I mean you have to play. To me, he's on the Kawhi Leonard path to, being great when you play. I mean, his numbers when he plays are great. But then again, you know, the team never gets to play. And I think in today's NBA, he'd be so effective because the defense is shoddy and everything is a three. So if you think about putting him with a bunch of good shooters around him, how the hell would you cover him? Because
Well,
from
that's the thing.
foul line in, he's shooting like 60%. And then
Yeah.
if you double him, he's going to kick out.
He could be like a super version of Draymond Green. I mean, he could
Yeah.
be like that kind of guy, a
Yeah.
better version of Draymond. But
Yeah, he could.
the
And
thing
he
is,
was when he
Draymond,
plays.
though, yeah, Draymond brings the piss and say what you want about Draymond Green, but he brings the physicality, he brings the piss and vinegar that's necessary to win.
Yep.
And this is a guy I just don't think the motor is there. That's the problem.
Well, winning's not a priority, obviously, in his life. And it's sad, but all those high draft picks, I mean, sometimes they don't work out. I mean, we ever sat there and went down the quarterbacks in the last 15 years, we'd see that about 70% of them aren't even in the freaking league anymore. So it's scary, but like I said, a roof for Zion. But that team's had some talent now. Ingram's bitching, he wants out too. So you can't be shocked, I guess.
And what's kind of ironic too is New Orleans, that's a pretty good city to be living in and being drafted by
Yes.
by a team. It's
Yes.
not like you're in somewhere that's not necessarily a nice area. So
You're not in Oklahoma City.
I know it's the murder capital of the world, New Orleans, right now in America, but still, it's a vibrant, fun city, nonetheless. So,
Yeah. Yes, that's still a nice city probably to hang out in.
all right, so we'll keep an eye on Zion and what happens to him throughout the year.
Sure.
And now, Uncle Dave, let's get into our college hoops. So, since the last time we've touched base here, what have you
Yep, I
seen?
got them
And,
all down.
what do you got going forward here with college basketball?
Well, on Saturday we saw Duke just get lazy with Notre Dame late by not doing time and score. Cooper Flag breaks the freshman record in the ACC, which has had some great freshmen over the year, including Michael Jordan, Grant Hill, etc. USC upset Illinois on the road, which was a big one because USC was struggling, and then Illinois turns around and beats the crap out of Indiana at home the other night. And so they're starting to bitch in Indiana a little bit. There's a little bit of concern there, a little bit of the fan base starting to complain about Mike Woodson. But Indiana forgets that this isn't 40 years ago. It's the same problem that St. John's had for a while until they got Rick Pitino. If you don't upgrade the facilities and things of that nature, the modern day player is not going to come. That's why St. John's is surprising that they have fixed it. That's why Rick wanted to play most of the games at the Garden because the facilities do matter. Louisville beat Pitt, who's now hitting the skids a little bit. Pitt lost again last night. So Louisville is in second place in the ACC and is very legit, and coach has won everywhere he's been. Auburn had an injury to Poole, but it's held on. Iowa State at the buzzer in OT took a big W and then beat Kansas pretty solid last night. There was tied with about 3 minutes left, and then they pulled away. UConn built a 19-point lead and held off G-Town, which was nice on the weekend. Kansas held Cincinnati to 40 on Saturday. That was a really good performance. And Kansas, I think, is a little bored. I think they'll still be a tough out. Clemson beat FSU by 20, and FSU's having some empty seats in the building, which is not going to fly in Tallahassee. Plus, they got the scandal that we talked about with Leonard Hamilton.
Yeah, so that's a
Uh,
dicey situation for sure.
the Cuse beat BC on the road, and BC's in a little bit of trouble. And if coach doesn't get that turned around and have a strong finish, BC is such a tough spot in the ACC, but the alums don't want to hear it. They had Al Skinner winning games for years. They bitched about
Oh
his
boy.
style was boring when he
Right.
ran the flex. All he ever did was win.
At
Florida
BC,
beat
by the way, at Boston College, not easy
yeah,
like you said. Oh,
Florida beats Arkansas, and Arkansas is now lost again last night. They're 0-4, and Calipari's already getting griped at. I mean, Arkansas fans, they turned their
yeah, they
back
don't want
pretty
to hear
quick.
about all the wins you have at Kentucky. They don't give a crap
No,
about that.
and SMU smoked Georgia Tech over the weekend. Then they got a miracle on Virginia last night. Virginia decided to go offense defense with a kid who had played 2 minutes last night and gave away a game. It's Stanford by 20 over UVA over the weekend. UVA is struggling right now. Carolina beat State by 2. That was a big win for them. Carolina's started to right the ship, although it's not been pretty. They have the good rookie Jackson's playing really well. Providence beating Seton Hall. Seton Hall looks like they're in big trouble. Coach has lost a little magic from his St. Peter's days, and that's all it takes. You get on one of those runs, everybody signs you to a long-term deal, and now all of a sudden you're struggling at Seton Hall. Wake smacked Miami. Obviously, Miami's in trouble. It's tough.
Yeah, then Miami got totally blitzed by Duke at
Yep.
Cameron.
Tennessee beats Texas, and now Texas, who had a great non-league season, is 0-3 in the SEC. And
Yeah,
again, we talked about this.
you've been talking about, yep, the
Is
cannibalization in conference play,
the
right?
cannibalization. These are league killers. You got Calipari's 0-4. Texas was 0-3 as of Saturday. Georgia beats Oklahoma. Oklahoma, who was having a great year, has now lost several in a row. Georgia should be top 25, but then they turn around and lose to Kentucky. Ole Miss is definitely legit. Chris Beard's one of the best coaches in the country for my money.
Yes, he is.
Georgia Tech beat Cal. Virginia Tech beat Cal. St. John's beat Nova in a great game. And then they turned around the other night and beat Georgetown. St. John's struggled with the zone in that game, but they did find some ways to win. Patino's got them pressing like 96 Kentucky, not quite as good as that. Bama beat A&M, but then Bama lost the other night at home. That's a bad loss. Iowa smacked Indiana. That said, Indiana's given 2 shaky efforts in a row in an assembly hall. That's not acceptable. Kentucky, like I said, Kentucky had a big win versus Mississippi State. Michigan State is legit. Michigan State beat Northwestern. Northwestern held off Maryland tonight, I believe, in the final score of that game. Purdue killed Nebraska, and then you saw Nebraska turn around tonight. Lost to Rutgers, gave them a good run for their money. Then we had 2 nights ago, we got Nova taking a tough loss, and now Nova, which had a good little run going, is now fallen back into the pack and has probably sealed their fate. Auburn beat Mississippi State. Like I said, Illinois killed Indiana. Louisville crushed the Cuse. That's not a good sign. Missouri upset Florida at home. And Florida, I told you, the only thing I worry about Florida is the behavior of their coach on the bench.
Yes.
This guy just has the worst body language of any coach I've ever seen.
Yeah, it
I
was
mean,
kind
that
of
could be.
when we talked about it after the Kentucky game
Yep.
that it's kind of awkward, just stuff that you don't really see from coaches, not
Yep.
vibrant,
I mean,
but
I
kind
mean,
of
I could be as crazy as anybody on the sideline. We all know that, but at the same time,
right.
like this guy's just something about him. I just don't like it. Like I said, Missouri upsets Florida at home, and it's a weird loss for Florida at home on their floor. Um, you know, Wake gets another big win today. They should be top 25. They're getting hosed right now. And Salas has been one of the best players in the country. He should be like a first, second, or third team All-American right now. Iowa State beat Kansas. Like I said, nice game. NC's got it going. Tech beat State, and NC State's starting to panic a little bit off that little miracle run last year.
Right.
People wonder what happens. Well, you don't have the big fella who is a mismatch like we talked about
Right.
100 times over. Michigan State beats Penn State. A great win there. Tennessee beats Georgia. Like I said, UVA got a crushing loss last night. Purdue beats Washington. And again, Washington off to a great start this year, goes in a non-league, and is now getting their ass handed to them. And this is what happens. You go into these leagues and you just get crushed. So let's look at the Big Ten standings here for a second. I got them right in front of me. So let's just look at how crazy this is. So right now you got Washington's a 1-6 in the Big Ten. Northwestern, it looks like, did lose that game tonight. So Maryland did pull it out. So Maryland's 3-3. Maryland came back and beat Northwestern. So if you look at it, like the Gophers won tonight, that's great. Washington's 1-6, they're done. Northwestern's 1-4. Penn State's 2-5. And Penn State was having a historic season. They were 10-1. Now they're 2-5 in the Big Ten. UCLA is 2-4. Mick Cronin's going crazy. It's funny to watch. Uh, you know, Rutgers got back on track tonight with a win, which is nice. 3-4 in the Big Ten. Those are my guys. I root for them like crazy.
Memphis
So
Tigers go
that's
down to Temple too.
Yep, and yeah, that's right. Temple pulls out a game on Memphis, and that's why I worry about Memphis, man. Who the hell are you playing every night?
Right.
Michigan State's legit. Purdue's legit. Coaches. Michigan lost to Minnesota tonight at the buzzer. Very good game, but Michigan's solid. You can see that they're a tough team. Oregon Ducks are right there. Wisconsin Badgers. It's Indiana. Everybody's bitching, but they're still 4-3 in the Big Ten. So overall you're 13-5, but in Indiana it's two bad losses in a row. Trojans are 3-3. Maryland's 3-4. So these teams are scrapping for their life here already. It's just like I said, it's just a coach. It's a coach killing conference, and this is just the way it is.
How about Uncle Dave? St. John's 15-3, 6-1 in Big East play, and they're not a top 25 team right now.
Yeah, well,
That's something
I
that
think
stands out to
I think
you.
there's a little bit of bias there. I think there's also sometimes people root against the great coach for some reason. There's a little bias there. Usually they pump up the great coach, but for some reason, Patino, I think last year got screwed in the NCAA tournament, and they haven't been 6-1 in the Big East, I think, since the 1980s, if I'm correct. So the Big East
Coach
isn't the
Louis,
Big East of then,
right?
but they're a legitimate team press, and they got the great guards. Uh, the 6'8" kid is playing great too. I mean, so they've got some good pieces there. Luis is playing great. So St. John's is legit. They did have a lot of trouble with Georgetown zone, but then they finally made a couple of shots, and they play really hard. They're getting up and down. The pace has been great. Patino obviously is one of the best coaches of my money of all time. One in two different schools. So obviously St. John's probably belongs in the top 25. I think with Georgia also and Wake Forest. I think some of these teams are allowed to lose multiple games and never go down in the ranking. I don't know how that works, but
Must have naked
it's
pictures of those that are deciding the.
exactly like. And then when you just look at some of the standings as we have them updated here, some more of these coach killer leagues here. If you scroll down to the SEC, I mean, good lord, I mean, what is
That's
going
a
on here?
that's a bloodbath. That one for sure.
Arkansas is 0-4. I mean, Calipari,
Oh my
Oklahoma
God.
Sooners. Oklahoma was 13-0, and now they're 0-4 in the SEC.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that they should get in the tournament. I'm sorry. When you're 0-4 in your league, you don't belong in there.
No, I agree with you.
Texas is 1-3, and then everybody else, the Aggies, Vanderbilt, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi State, they're all above 500 or 500. So you can live with that. But these conferences are just swallowing up people. Stony Brook lost again tonight. That was a tough one. Hofstra actually won, so that's good. Happy about that. I try to follow the local flavor here.
Of course. Yep.
And I always bleed Stony Brook red as far as I'm concerned. Stony Brook right now is
You're bleeding a lot of different colors these days, Uncle Dave. You have Virginia orange, you have Rutgers red, you have Stony Brook red, you have Duke blue.
yep.
You're getting
Duke.
blood transfusions all over the place here.
Oh, you got to do it. I mean, I'm loyal to my guys. So and obviously wear my Sharks blue for my high school team. William and Mary's at the top of the Colonial right now at 5-0, with Towson, Elon, and Charleston at 4-1. It's a great conference that people don't watch enough. The Ivy League finally kicked off a little
Great
bit,
basketball
and
being played in those conferences. Yep.
oh god, even the D. By the way, D3 basketball, Mike McSloy, coach of the week in D3. They beat Catholic on the road, their first place in the landmark conference. So Mike
Shout out to
McSloy got
Mike
the
McSloy, Coach McSloy.
Shout out to Mike McSloy, my old point guard who hit the county winning shot with .2 on the clock in 2007 as the clock struck midnight to turn to March 1st. Never forget that in my life, my favorite moment. Yeah, Princeton's 1-0, Cornell's 1-0, Yale and Dartmouth actually won a game and got off the schneid there 1-0. So, but these leagues are awesome. Marist is off to a 6-0 start. I root for them. And I root for Merrimack. I like the zone they play. We've implemented a little bit of that. So but some of these schools are just getting crushed by these conferences. It's just killing people. If you go
The
down and
Oklahoma one just sticks out to me. 13-0 and then four-game losing streak all in conference. Like that is just insane to look at right there. My
yeah,
good.
Porter Moser, I believe, is the coach that went there from Loyola, right? Am I correct?
Yes.
So, as my mom used to say, the bloom wears off the rose, and you know how fans just get crazy these days. I think sports betting and sports gambling is a big
It's
part of
it's
that.
elevated that for sure. There's no
Oh
question.
my God, the
Guys have
hatred and
yep, yep.
I just feel bad for these guys. The ACC right now, Duke at 7-0, Louisville 6-1 is legit. Pitt is on the slide. That's going to really cause them. They had a 0-2 week, and now they're 3-3 in the conference, and they're just looking for excuses to keep ACC teams out this week. SMU is legit, although they got a gift last night versus Virginia. The Canes are backing up the bottom here, 0-6 with Cal, Boston College, and Virginia at 1-5. Syracuse 2-4, they're in trouble. Notre Dame 2-4. The Pack is 2-4, and that's not a good sign. In the Big 12, the other big conference, Iowa State, Houston. Houston obviously plays great defense. The Wildcats off to a great start at 5-0. Kansas at 3-2. UCF hanging in there at 3-2 is surprising. But the Colorado Buffaloes 0-5 at the bottom. Bobby Hurley not getting it done. 1-4 as the Sun
Wow.
Devil there. Never gets it done. Obviously, not as great a coach as he was as a player. His best college point guard I've ever seen.
Yeah, but you
BYU
said he
Cougar.
had you had you had his father, Bob Hurley Sr., and you had Coach K as your coaches. So my goodness, then you had
Yes.
NBA coach experiences too.
Yep.
So
It's funny because his dad criticizes him at the clinic as the worst defender he ever saw. When Bob Hurley, they had to get rid of the hash mark in college basketball because Hurley was abusing it. So like he used to be able to dribble to the hash and get under the hash and stop the 5 second count. But Bob Hurley was the master at making guys not be able to get to the hash mark. Today there is no hash mark, that little 28-foot line, on the
yep,
sideline.
yep.
So for you youngsters, you don't know what that one is, but that's all right. But Baylor Bears, 3-2, they're legit. Their defense is legit. So it's that conference is going to swallow its own. If you look already, you got 5 teams at 1-4, and one team at 0-5. They're all done. I mean, you're done.
Yeah,
So in the Big
if you don't
East
win
is
if you don't win your conference tournament, then that's all she wrote. Yeah.
yeah, the Big East is swallowing itself up as well. Marquette 6-0, St. John 6-1, UConn 5-1, and legit. Creighton has snuck back in there, and Villanova had a tough week. Georgetown fell back a little bit to 3-3, but they look legit. Coach has done a great job down there. He's one of the best coaches in the country, Coach Cooley. My Winthrop Eagles back in the day, the garnet and gold. My old stomping grounds is 3-2. I have a little garnet and gold in my blood too. It's another color. I'm so interested to watch the Oregon Ducks. They're 4-2 there, and I'm having fun watching them. Coach Dana Altman's one of the best coaches in the country. So a lot of good basketball out there. And like I said, Maryland pulled that game out tonight versus Northwestern. You feel for Northwestern. Actually, Hofstra lost that game tonight. She's at 2-3 now in the league. They got to get back in it somehow. But there's so much turnover with the portal that these teams are having trouble building week to week and year to year. Very hard.
It's just incredible too. You have a crazy game tonight where Minnesota and Michigan, you have an overtime game. Minnesota was 8-9 and 0-6 coming into tonight's game, 0-6 in the
Yeah.
conference, and they beat a good Michigan team who's ranked 20th in the nation and was 5-0 coming in to the
The
conference with
old
overall.
Florida Atlantic coach.
Yeah, so I mean, it just goes to show you that on any given night, even the teams that are in the cellar can beat a team that's up at the top.
Oh, when you're going on the road in these conference games,
Oh
you got to
yeah,
go to the barn. First of all, at the
right.
barn, the floor is totally different. If the players sit below the floor, the barn is a totally different experience. So when you go on the road, it throws players off. Anything out of routine throws people off, and sitting below the floor definitely throws you off. That's why the Final Four is a weird thing that they have it on the stage as well. It throws people off.
So
But it's
former Duke player Uncle Dave Carlos Boozer said that he thinks Duke is going to run the table in conference play. Now, even as a Duke fan, I have to say I think that's I know they're fourth in the nation and they're really looking good, but that's a tall order right there.
I would say if they would run a little more offense, I would say yes. But if you look at that Notre Dame game, so they're up 69-51. There's about 6 minutes left in that
And
game.
Notre
That game
Dame made
gets
a
down.
little bit of a run to come back into it
And you
late
know
there.
why they made the run? It wasn't even their offense. That Duke came down 4 or 5 times in a row and just jacked a three.
Right.
And I know like you want to be cool with your players, but you still need to do time and score in life. And they wouldn't do it. And so what happened was basically all of a sudden it's a 6, 7 point game. Now, when Con Kneppel's hitting, and the stud off the bench is hitting and Cooper's doing his thing, that's great. But there's gonna be nights when the ball doesn't go in.
Right.
So when they get Clemson, it's going to slow down. Clemson's got some good defenders. It's a little bit of a different team. Them in Carolina, it doesn't matter what your record is. Jeff Capel's 95 team took them to overtime, and they were awful. It's the worst Duke team I've ever seen. So the bottom line is it's hard to run the table in the ACC. Are they clearly the best team in the ACC? No doubt. Louisville will be spirited and give them trouble, just as SMU did. Another team that'll give them trouble, Pitt will give them trouble. So it just depends. You can lose any night. You also a turned ankle away from any time,
Absolutely.
going and losing a game. But yeah, I think they're by far the best team in the ACC. I think they're a Final Four caliber team. That being said, styles make fights, and so everybody always says, "Well, who you got in the finals?" Well, you got to see the bracket, and the bracket's a long time away. We got 2 months till the bracket comes out.
Right. A lot of
So
basketball
you're
to
in
be
a sit,
played still. Yep.
and styles make fights, and you got to see, and you really got to look and see who's there. Do I think they're a top seed? I definitely think they're in a top seed. I think Auburn and them are top seeds. And Iowa State, obviously, until proven otherwise, has earned the respect of a top seed. I would say that Kentucky has earned the respect of a top seed, and they keep winning. So obviously, Kentucky is off to a great start. And even though I'm not a big fan, I'll give them their respect. They're 3-1 in the conference. Tennessee, obviously, 3-1 in the conference. Crimson Tide lost a bad one the other night. They're 3-1 in the conference. Mississippi is legit. Chris Beard 4-0. He is legit.
Yep.
So it's funny. This is where it drives you crazy. So Ole Miss is 4-0. Kentucky, Alabama, and Tennessee are all 3-1, and Ole Miss and Kentucky and Alabama are all ranked ahead of Ole Miss. So it's kind of funny. And the Gators are 2 games behind them, and they're ranked ahead of them too. So it's kind of funny. It always was. Again, the rankings is one man's pretty is another man's ugly. So it's the same situation as always. It's Kentucky's got name recognition, but they deserve to be considered a little higher, I think. And Auburn, like I said, depends on how long the stud is out for. We'll see. But supposedly it's a bad ankle, whether it's a high ankle or not, who knows? They're being kind of hush about it, so who knows?
All right. Yeah, we're looking at the rankings now and everything. Yeah, we still got basically we're at the halfway point, right, Uncle Dave, at this point now in the season, right? Or are we a little past
Well,
that?
we're halfway in their total games. We're not halfway in their league games.
Right.
These teams have played about 18 games, so a little bit more than halfway as far as their total games. But league play was still a little less than half the way because now we got these giant conferences. So like even a conference here, like if you look at the size of these conferences, this is just insane.
No, you didn't
Like the
get
Atlantic,
these.
the Atlantic Sun Conference right now has 6, 9, 11 teams in it. It's just gotten absurd. The size of these conferences are just too big.
Right.
6, 9, 12. It's 15 teams in the damn Atlantic 10. I mean, it's out of control. The Bonnies, by the way, 3-2, Uncle Ken's school there.
Right.
Your uncle's school there. Um, you know, uh, Fordham 0-5. I hate to see that as the local team. Fordham had that going with Villanova coach for a couple of years back, and then he left, and now unfortunately Fordham is back where they were. Like I said, the Atlantic Coast we already went over. Big 12 we went over. Big East, obviously Butler and DePaul is 0-7. DePaul, I want to speak about for a minute. This is the one job that no one has been able to fix since Ray Meyer and his son David Meyer left in the mid 80s. It's amazing because in the mid 80s, from the 60s to the 80s, DePaul is one of the top 10 teams in the country pretty much every year. They have not been good in 40 years. And you wonder what's going on. Well, I know they're in a tough part of Chicago, but still, you can't rise up one time. I mean, it's unbelievable
Got to get the
how
local talent
unfortunate.
there too. You got to attract that
Yeah,
somehow.
yeah, of course. Xavier looks a little down this year. Seton Hall, like I said, is in trouble. Providence hanging on their future. I mean, the Big East better be careful. They're only going to get 4 or 5 teams in themselves.
Yeah, they're yep.
Marquette in front, but I don't think Marquette's the best team right now.
Yeah, we'll see how that shapes up too. Yep.
Yep, absolutely. Some other teams at the bottom of their leagues or top of their leagues, like I said, the Gophers are 1-6, the Huskies are 1-6. I mean, the Huskies are walking around going, "Hey, we were 9-2, and now we're 10-8." Like this is what happens. Like I said, Penn State was having an historic season for the program there. They were off to a great start. They were 10-1. Now you get 12-6, and you're 2-5, and all of a sudden people looking at you like, "Oh, you're not doing that good." It's just what it does to you. These leagues just swallow you whole, and there's nothing you can do about
That's why coaches
it.
get gray or they drink or both.
Yeah, they drink, and this is why, they get paid a lot of money because of the crap they're dealing with. That's why their salaries went up so
Right.
much because they're going to get fired 2 years into a 4-year deal, and it's a tough situation, but you know what? We can't cry for them with the money they're making. The
Nope.
other league I like to speak about is the MAC. Like I said, Iona's fallen off since Coach Patino left. 3-4. Manhattan Jaspers 2-4. Canisius got their first win as an NCAA Division One team this year. They're 1-16 right now. Up
Welcome to
there,
Division One.
oh yeah, well they've been there a while. They just haven't been good in so long. It's a tough
Right.
spot. You're up near the border in near Canada there. It's a tough spot to convince people to go. But it's good to see Maris back in front there at 6-0.
The Red Foxes.
The Foxes are the Flying Dutchman there, Rick Smits. He got it done a lot in his day for the Indiana Pacers. The other thing is you got Wagner Seahawks, all the local flavor. They're struggling a little bit, 1-2 in league. Always like to cover the local guys. Long Island University Sharks are out front in the Northeast Conference at 4-0. That's good to see. So my alma mater there getting it done. 4-0. See if they can sneak in there. Colgate is back in front again in the Patriot League for like the 800th time in a row. Coach has done a solid job there, and they're getting it done. And they down south, you got Samford 5-0, obviously, and all the other conferences we always talk about. It's just very competitive with these big conferences. Even these smaller conferences have 12, 15 teams in them. It's too much.
Yeah, no, it's the leagues before this, Uncle Dave. What were the general sizes of them? Just
Well, I
so
mean, the
I have an
ACC
idea.
for years was a 9-team league.
Right.
The Big East for years was an 8 to 9 team league. And then all of a sudden they start cannibalizing each other through football. And now you got the ACC has, probably 18 teams in it. It's let me
Requiem,
see how many.
the Requiem for the Big East documentary, ESPN did really highlight that well, showing how football was a
But you
factor.
know what's funny about that documentary? And I loved it, but they forget to tell you that they did that to the Atlantic 10. They also did that.
Yeah, it was the blueprint for all these conferences, right?
Exactly. They took Cincinnati. They took Cincinnati out of there. They took West Virginia. They did it to a lot of people, and then they had it done to them, which is what the problem is. It's gotten crazy. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 teams in the ACC.
Yeah.
So it's doubled in 20 years. It's crazy.
It's ridiculous, right? Yeah.
So I mean,
If you were
but
put in a time machine, all right, 20 years ago, and then you came out now, you would be like, what the hell is this? What the hell is this
yeah,
now?
like what is Maryland doing in the Big Ten? Like what
Right.
is Duke playing Maryland? That would just
Yeah. But
piss me
Cal is
off
in
to
the
no end.
ACC now, but Duke is in Durham, North Carolina, and you got
Right.
Miami. It used
Yeah.
to be, the geography of the school, you had something to do with it a little bit. Now that's nothing to do with any of that now.
Yeah, it's not. It's about football, making some extra money and things of that nature, which I get. I guess in this respect, money's making the world go around. The NCAA says, by the way, they're going to pay the women's teams per round when they win in the NCAA tournament, like they do for the men's teams. So that was ruled on today. So that's interesting. So it's there's a lot of good hoop out there right now, and schedule wise, it's tomorrow you should have the Ivies. Usually play on those Fridays. So let's see what we got tomorrow night. Sometimes you get a good Pac-10 game on like Fox. Well, not the Pac-10, but now those Pac-10 teams roll in the Big Ten. Yeah, Providence is at Villanova tomorrow night. Big game. The poll at Georgetown, so Georgetown gets a break. Iowa at UCLA. Something's got to give there. Those are the bigger games tomorrow night. Then Saturday is just a bonanza of basketball. It's going to be a lot of fun. So Saturday you got Bama versus Kentucky at noon. That's just
That's must see. Yep.
that's a must see game. Clemson at Pitt is an awesome game at noon. Auburn and Georgia is going to be a track meet. Hey, better get your sneakers laced up for that one. Ton of good basketball. It's going to be a fun day. Wake Forest, Virginia Tech should be fun. I mean, it's a great time of year. It's Saturdays and this time of year. Plus, you got all the pro football.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining Nephew and Uncle Basketball Banter. We will definitely be reconnecting, I'm sure, Uncle Dave, sometime this weekend after these Friday and Saturday games. Just a ton of good
Sure.
basketball coming.
Saturday and Sunday got some great games. Saturday's got, I think the whole country's playing.
We shall see what happens. All right, till next time, basketball fans. Live long and prosper, and may the force be with you.